Okay, Chag Sameach. Nice to see you. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the Parsha Shavua. Actually, what does that mean? It's gonna be after the Chag. We're gonna do this Parsha Shavua, but we're up to it now in our Chumash class. So we have to discuss a little bit about that, and then we'll discuss also about the issues of the holiday, the Rabbi Akiva and his students. What happened over there? What was the whole moral there? No idea. Okay, so right, this Parsha tells us, right, Kedoshim to you. What does that mean? Be holy people, right? The Jewish people have to be holy. What does that mean? They have to follow a different standard, a higher standard of living. Not like the rest of the people, there's all kinds of rounding corners, all kinds of things, skipping over all kinds of things, here and there, all kinds of stuff. A little bit cheating, a little bit lies, a little bit white lies, a little bit this, a little bit corruption, a little bit this. The Jewish people are expected to go to a higher standard. This is what Kadosh Baruch Hu commands us, right? Since you are the chosen people, since you are the people that have to show, be an example for the whole world, for other people to emulate. So therefore, you have to be holy, right? Not just to be observant, religious. That's not enough. You have to be also holy people. So what does it mean to be holy people? So comes the Torah and tells us several things, which is with all kinds of amazing stuff over here, right? That shows the higher standard the Jews are expected to adhere to, right? So it says like this, right? That a person who has a field and he's a farmer. In those days, most people subsided on farming, right? That's the way it was. Nowadays, there's other professions, whatever. So the point is, right, that when you have a field and you're farming, don't take all the crops for yourself. This is not the way of the Jewish people. You have to also consider the community, what's going on. People are poor. There are people who don't have what to eat. There's all kinds of things like those situations. So therefore, it comes and teaches you like this, right? The Chumash. When you now reap your harvests on your field, right? What does that mean? Don't take the corners of your field. Leave it over for the poor. The corner, leave one corner for the poor. This is the way it is. So it's a small gesture, but it definitely helps because they can just go around the poor, that don't have what to eat, and they can find here something over here left over, something left over here, in this field, in that field, right? All kinds of places. They grope around and they find, and they subsist like that. So that's a nation which is based on generosity, right? On benevolence, right? That's what we call that, right? That's the idea. Well, it says over here, right? Veleket ketzirecha lo telaket, right? There's all kinds of like tithes that you have to have from your crops. As we said, right? We're talking about the corner, and then we're talking about the mitzvah of leket, right? Which is what? That when you gather, right, sheaves and pile them up into like piles of grain. Once you cut them, harvest them. So the ones that are like, small leftovers, you gotta leave them there. Don't take them, The ones that were not piled up into a pile and they were left over, so you gotta leave them over for the poor. That's also, right, another thing. So what they do is that they glean around the poor, they come and they pick up all that stuff that gets left over, right? So if you accidentally left over some little things over there, here and there, odds and ends, right, don't take those, just leave them, Because you didn't put them into your pile, you didn't pile them up, leave them there. That's the idea, right? That's also another, right? Another way to be benevolent. Then it says, right, "V'karmecha lo te'olel u'peret karmecha lo telaket le'ani v'lager ta'azov otam ani Adonai Elohechem." Also regarding, right, the trees as well, right? You have to leave over portions of the tree as well, right? There's a portion in the highest part of the tree, right, where the highest fruits are over there, in the middle. You have to leave over, right, also over there, portion over there. So you have to leave a portion of your tree. You have to leave a portion of your crops over for the poor, right? This is a benevolent society. This is a society which is called holy. Why is that? Because we have mercies, right, on the poor, on disadvantaged. Let's go on. Right? It doesn't end over there. This is on generosity, financial generosity. You know what I mean? But we also have other things as well that we are required to do. Right? It says don't steal, don't deny, right? Don't cheat. All these things, right? Person should not do. What does that mean? Okay, stealing, everybody knows you're not allowed to steal. You know what I mean? But there's also all kinds of things which are similar to that. Fraud, denying you owe somebody money. They say, oh, I don't know you. I don't remember that. All of a sudden he forgot. Things like this. You know what I mean? Or he doesn't want to pay him the proper what he owes him. Right? All kinds of things like this. He doesn't want to, So here, right, we're supposed to be honest in business. That's the idea,
With each other or with Goyim also?
It's a good question what you're asking, right? So the truth is that here we're talking about Jews with one another, but the truth is that you're not allowed to steal from a goy as well. Not allowed to steal from a goy, right? There are certain things, leniencies there that are involved, but regarding stealing from a goy, right, or cheating him, in business, then you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to do either with a goy or from a Jew, right? Because stealing is stealing, That's the way it is. There's also Chilul Hashem, desecration of the name of God as well. They say, oh, these Jews, they're not honest. They Jewed me. Oh, they got me. They did this to me. They did this to me. This is the way they talk. You understand? Why they talk this way? Because they don't want to be cheated by anybody. They don't want to be like this. That's the idea. So it goes on to say, right? "V'lo tish'ave'u b'shmi l'shaker." Also, don't swear in the name of God, right? In falsehood. What does that mean? They tell you in court, you swear you don't owe this guy money. Yeah, I swear. Swear to God. What swear to God? You owe him money. You're swearing to God that you owe him. You don't owe him, right? So this is like one of these things where people just they take an oath. You know what it is, right? You go to Congress, right? You see over there what goes on, right? There was this guy, Michael Cohen, and these guys. They come over there. They take an oath. They put their hands on the Bible, and then they say like 200 lies. From left to right, right? Until next year, right? They're lying to these people. You know what I mean? This is
the Bible, like on this.
This is well, it depends on your religion, right? If you're Jewish, you got to put on your Bible, right? Everybody's got their own Bible, you know what I mean? That's the way it is. They know they don't discriminate, They give you what you believe in, So this way, right? They got you always got you, whatever you are, they got you. I'm sorry. So the idea is like this, right? That for the Jewish people to behave this way, you know what I mean? This is not the way of the Jewish people, What did you swore and then you start to lie, like this, blah, 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 blah. You don't care, Whatever I can get away with, I'll lie, I'll cheat, I'll lie, this, that, whatever, This is not the Jewish way of doing things. Person has to be straight, straight as an arrow, You mean something, say it, say what you mean, be straight. So don't play games. Right? All the more so when you swear in the name of God, right? So then you're also desecrating the name of God. You're defiling, the name of God. This is a terrible thing, right? As we said, right? This is one of the Ten Commandments, right? Not to swear in vain, not to swear falsely. These kinds of things. Right. So let's go on, right? So it says exactly this, right? That's the whole point. That it says over here that when you swear in the name of God falsely, you are desecrating the name of God. That's what it says, right? Et Shem Elohecha ani Adonai, right? B'chilata et Shem Adonai Elohecha, right? You're defiling the name of God when you do that. Okay, very good. So then it says, right? Lo ta'ashok et re'echa v'lo tigzol. So here we're talking about ta'ashok and tigzol, right? Similar to what we said before, right? What does that mean? Before we were talking about stealing. So there's also two other things which are similar to that, right? There's also oshek. Oshek means that you owe somebody wages, right? You have an employee. You don't pay the guy, right? You never got paid. So it comes, and tells you, oh, where's my money? I don't owe you money. I paid you already. This kind of games, these kind of things. Right? This is not the way of the Jewish people. You know what I mean? You owe somebody wages, pay up. They say, right, that if a person has employees, he has to always, be looking around to get the money, not to pay them. You know what I mean? Don't just sit there and wait, expect everything to happen by itself. You got to also actively, look for the money. Try to do some, make some, do some, tricks, pull some, stunts to get the money. Get the guy to get off your back. You know what I mean? You owe the person money. He works by you. Now he has to what? Sit and wait for you for 2 years until you pay him. So why did you hire him in the first place? You know what I mean? If you don't have money to pay, you know what I mean? This is the idea. This is also, this standard has to be adhered to. You know what I mean? Everything honest, everything straight. Also, there's the meaning of gezel, right? What does it mean, gezel? Gezel is similar to stealing, but it's a different form of stealing, right? Sometimes a person, what happens is, right, that he, for instance, right, he owes a person money, right? He doesn't pay him back. So that's called a gazlan. What does that mean? You're stealing by not paying your debt. You didn't really steal it. You didn't go to his house and pull out something from his shelf. Right, exactly. When you don't pay your kids, you're called gazlan. What does that mean? You're doing gezel, right? You're stealing because you don't pay what you owe the person, right? So these kinds of things, right, are considered to be not the holy way of going around about in life. You know what I mean? This is got to be straight. That's the idea. Okay, very good. So look what it says, right? That when you have a worker, right? If you don't have otherwise conditions made, what does that mean? Like in our society, right? The worker gets paid, let's say monthly or weekly, right? Or something like this. But in those days, they used to hire somebody like for a day. So what does that mean? The Torah tells you, right, that if you hire them for that day, you got to pay him by the next, like, few hours. You got to pay his wage. So you got to make sure that when you hire the person, right, you see to it, right, that the guy gets paid right away. So what does it mean, right? It says, "V'lo talim pe'olot tzachir itacha ad haboker." Right? If you're the person who worked by you in the day, you got to pay him that night. Don't wait till the dawn comes, right? The crack of dawn, and he doesn't have his money. Why not? He worked by you. So pay the guy, you know what I'm saying? If you didn't have money to pay, so why'd you hire him? You know what? You're waiting for a miracle? You know what I mean? This is not the way to do things. You know what I mean? This is not the way, right? That's the idea. Okay, very good. You got the idea. So, goes on to say, right? לא תקלל חירש ולפני עיוור לא תיתן מכשול. Right? It says over here that do not curse the one who is deaf, right, mute, and also don't put a stumbling block before the blind, right? So the Chazal tell us, right, this is like an allegory here over here. Who does these kinds of things, right? Put stumbling blocks before the blind. The crazy people don't do these kinds of things, right? You have to be very cruel to do that, right? You have to be some kind of Nazi or whatever. So who does this kind of thing, right? So we're talking actually about what? That a person is doing something wrong, and you know that that's going to harm him, and you don't tell the guy, you know what I mean? Just say, okay, let him do what he wants, he's his own person, like, what does that have to do with me? So you don't tell him, you gotta tell him, listen, this guy's going to get into trouble like that. He's doing something which is dangerous. He doesn't even know about it. It could be that he doesn't even know that it's dangerous, right? So you know that it's dangerous, so you got to tell him, listen, my friend, when you go to the Everglades in Florida, don't walk by the swamps in the morning, because the alligator will come out and eat you. You know what I mean? This guy doesn't know. He came to Florida. He thinks he's going on vacation. You know what I mean? He's going to have a good time over there. Comes out and walks his dog in the morning. And then all of a sudden, the alligator comes out and swallows him. This happens. This happens all the time. So you're a Floridian, right? Tell the guy. Listen. My friend, be careful. You come from New York. You don't know about these things. You come over here, you could be eaten alive. So be careful about what you do. Don't walk by the water in the morning like that when they come out. They come out looking for prey, whatever it is, right? All kinds of things like this. So if you know a person who's doing something which is going to harm him, or also could be something more, like readily, it's very, very, very common. Like, for instance, he tends to drive very fast, all kinds of, he's a daredevil on the road, these kind of people. Over 100 miles an hour, 150, so how long is he going to live, this guy? If he drives over 100 miles an hour on a weekly basis or daily basis, so everything, he's going to get into an accident. Something he may die. He's playing with his life. So you got to tell the guy, listen, this is not the way to drive, my friend. You're going to get tickets. You're going to get points. You may kill yourself and also other people as well. You may take a few other, nice people with you as well. To heaven. You get to heaven, can wait. Why? You're risking your life and also other people's lives. You got to tell a person. A person is blind. He doesn't see what he's doing. He's blind, and his wisdom, his knowledge is blind. So because of that, you have to tell him. Right? That's the idea. So don't just say, that's his business. If I tell him, he's gonna get upset. He may not like me. So he's not gonna like you. Tell him the truth. What can I do? That's the way it is. Okay, whatever. You understand the point. That's the idea. Okay, so lo tasu aver b'mishpat lo tisa pnei da'al. Right. So here it's telling you something also which is very, very important. Right. We're talking here about the judges, people who are judged. So they have to make sure, right, not to do any corrupted judgment. What does that mean, right? To play around with the truth. You know how it is, right? Because he likes one litigant over the other, he respects him more, whatever, because it's of religion, of race, or whatever, some kinds of things like this, right? Wealth, honor, whatever, all the kinds of things like this. So he respects him more or less because of what he is and who he is and how he is, and all these kinds of things, right? You cannot play favoritism when you're a judge. You have to judge truthfully. Everything has to be true. Everything has to be emet. Don't pay favorites. This guy, he looks more clean cut. I think I'm going to favor him. This guy looks dirty. He looks like he's nuts. What does that have to do with the judgment? You have to judge fairly. Because the guy doesn't look nice. He's a slob. Okay, so it doesn't mean you have to judge him like a loser, to make him lose the case because of that, right? So here it tells you, right, something what? That this is the tendency of good-hearted people. What does that mean? Right? That they tend to have mercies on the poor. So when they see two litigants, right? One guy's rich, one guy's a millionaire, drives a big Cadillac, $80,000, And the other guy, is a pauper. He doesn't even have a car. He takes the subway. So what do you call it? So what does he say? Oh, this poor guy. He's really wrong. But if I judge him, it'll finish him off. That's it. He's gonna have to pay money, and then he's gonna go into bankruptcy. He's gonna have to lose his apartment. What do you care about that? It's not your business. You know what I mean? When the guy's wrong, say he's wrong. You know what I mean? Even though he's poor, don't favor him because of that. You have no right to favor somebody because he's poor. It's a good-hearted thing, But don't have mercy on something which doesn't deserve mercy. They say, by the way, about David HaMelech, he had a certain certain method with this. He was a judge himself, right? He was a judge of people. The king used to judge. That was one of the jobs of the king, right? What are we talking about, judge? We're talking about monetary cases, right? Monetary cases, the king used to judge them. So what happened was that, right, David HaMelech, he knew, right, regarding what we're talking about here, exactly knew about that. So therefore he was careful not to misjudge anybody because he's poor, to have mercy on him. Because David HaMelech was a very merciful man. He had a heart, heart of gold. Okay, this is very good. But nevertheless, a person has to what? He has to judge fairly. So what did David HaMelech do?
Rabbi, I'm sorry, quick question. We have a question. Dairy products.
Yeah.
Should be kosher la Pesach or no?
A very good question. The truth is, if you see the ingredients, right, everything is very simple there. You don't need kashrut for that. But if it's something which you don't understand the ingredients,
Let's say it's cream cheese. It doesn't say it's kosher for Passover.
but the ingredients are very simple.
Yeah.
You should show to a rabbi the ingredients because sometimes some of the ingredients are problematic. So if you show to a rabbi, yeah. So yeah, Mechila. Sure, I understand. Yes. Kasegebio.
ამ შემთხვევაში მე რომ მივედი, არ იყო გამოშვებული არც ხალფი ეწერა იუდი, ან ხალავისრე.
Kasegebio.
მაგის ფესახში, ესე იგი, შეიძლება თუ არა ხმარი.
საფესახო წერია, ხეხშერი, წერია.
წერია პასოვე.
არ წერია პასოვე.
არ წერია.
So then you have to check the ingredients. უნდა გაშინჯო რაქს, რა არის მაგა. შეიძლება ხამეთი იყოს რაღაცა, არ ვიცი, უნდა გაიშინჯოს. ხახამს უნდა აჩვენო. რაბაის. Most of the time you're right. Most of the time there's nothing there. You're right. Most of the time, but just in case, to check,
მარტო თუ არის რძე, სიტყვის მაგარი.
Yeah.
ან კრემჩისის სხვადასხვა.
Then you're right. Absolutely. Yeah, tempty, sure. Tempty, yeah.
Pink bakshiro. What is the bakshiro? Tempty. Es kasher, yes, es yeshivita.
So if but it's good to show to the rabbi just to make sure everything is okay there, But if everything is because there are some ingredients over there sometimes, that are problematic. So busy. I'm not sure that get with a Okay, so getting back to very good. Okay. Tempty is it's a religious company. Okay, so probably you're right. I have to check it, but I don't remember. I rely on you. I trust you. Okay, so it says like this, right? Okay. So getting back to what we said, right? Yes. That's right. So as we said, right, David HaMelech, what would he do? David HaMelech, what he would do is like this, right? He would judge them fairly, never to favor the poor or the rich or anybody else. But then, right, then he would say, you know what? Okay, now I judged you. But you know what? The money that you owe, I'll pay from my own money. That's what he used to do. You know what I mean? This was like a combination of mercy and judgment. This you can do. Something like this is chassidut. It's like saintliness to do such a thing. A person is not required to do that, judge. But this was saintliness they did. But to judge them unfairly and say, this poor guy, he's right, even though he's wrong. This is a miscarriage of justice. You know what I mean? So this we cannot do. That's something else, right? That's the idea. Okay, very good. So let's go on. Oh, this is a very important mitzvah, right? This is a mitzvah, unfortunately, that most people do not pass the grade over here, right? What is it talking about? Being a gossiper, going around gossiping. This guy did this. I heard this guy did that. This happened to this guy. All kinds of things. Storyteller, Chorikana, goes from here, blah, 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 blah. He goes from one house, he hears the gossip, Then he takes it to a different house, to visit someone over there. He carries it around. By the time everything is over, right, the whole town knows about it. Right? This is the idea, right? So you know what I'm talking about. Right? So this is called rechilut, gossip. Gossiping. This is the idea. Okay, very good. So, but there's also something here uh, that there's also here a warning for the judge as well. That what? Don't accept people who are liars, to come testify. You know what I mean? If you see that the person is not believed for some reason. For instance, right, the classic case is like this. When you have to establish a fact in Bet Din, a Jewish court, you need two witnesses. One is not enough in general, right? In most cases, in monetary cases, right, in punishment cases, all kinds of, also, when it comes to, so what we're saying is like this, right? In murder cases, also capital cases as well. You have to have two witnesses at least, right? So now what happens is like this. Sometimes one witness comes to the court, right, and says, "Oh, this guy, I saw him doing something wrong, some sin." So what happens is like this, right? This guy's gonna get the surprise of his life. Why? Because right, it says the Gemara that one guy came like this to the court of Rav. So what did he do to this guy? Instead of punishing that person that he spoke about, he punished him. He lashed him. Why? Because you're coming and speaking Lashon Hara. So what does that mean, right? That you should know that as one witness, you're not going to be believed to say these kinds of things. So why are you coming and speaking about this person? This is Lashon Hara, So he lashed him, gave him lashes. Why? To show, right, that don't just come and speak Lashon Hara about people. There's no practical difference. You can't prove your case with one witness. So why are you coming and speaking about it? For what? What's the point? You want to give him a bad name? You want to ruin his reputation, right? You know what happens in Washington D.C., right? All those things are going over there. We saw already the last 2 years, right? What went on? All these kinds of things. So that's the whole idea, right? So we also don't want this kind of thing. There's tale bearing going on all the time. This telling about that, telling about this. There's one funny example I can tell you, right, that we find in this generation, in this time, in our times, that the Prime Minister of Israel, they came and they've been slandering him for the last 4 years to try to get him out because they can't get him out in the regular way. They try all kinds of dirty tricks, So this is a dirty trick. They slander him every day, all kinds of this, that, whatever. So in the end, what happened? Instead of getting him out, they made him even stronger. You know what I mean? He went up. So you see from there, by the way, that if a person is meant to be in a certain position, you can't just remove him by, having a dirty, filthy tongue and speaking all kinds of things. That's not the way to do it. You're going to make him even stronger. You're turning him into a victim. And then people have sympathy, empathy because of the person. They vote for him because you're victimizing him. You know what I mean? So it can have a boomerang effect. This is the idea, So this is all foolish behavior, all these kinds of things. It's very only fools behave this way. Also, remember this lady who came and testified against that judge, right? The Supreme Court. That, she did all kinds of things he did all kinds of things to her, right? This Kavanaugh, this guy Kavanaugh, right? And he doesn't remember where it was, when it was, what year, this, that, doesn't remember anything. Oh yeah, but he did something to me, What kind of thing is this, Who's going to believe you? So the only thing you're doing is ruining his reputation. This is the way to behave? For what are you doing this? To slander him, to degrade him, to denigrate him? This is not the way, This is not moral behavior, So the Jewish people who are the holy people, they have to refrain from these things, right? Exactly, that's all they do, That's the whole idea. That's the whole thing. Okay, very good. Also, right, we have another thing here. Right? What does that mean? If you see a person, right, who's getting into trouble, he's drowning, whatever, something like that, he's about to be hit by a car, and you can save the guy, so you have to save him. Don't just stand there, watch him die. You know what I mean? This is not allowed to do such a thing like that. Somebody else will do it. What do you mean somebody else will do it? You're the one who saw the person. You can save him, It's not dangerous for you to go in there, to get him out of there. Why don't you're going to just sit there and watch him die? Oh, These kind of things, right? This is very immoral thing, The person is going to be punished for that. You could have saved him. It wasn't really a danger for you to get in there. You could have gone to the pool. The guy was drowning in the pool. You could have brought him up over there. You're a good swimmer. Olympic swimmer, What's the problem? Oh, you didn't want to go? All kinds of excuses. By the way, the Gemara brings a funny point about that. You know what it says? There are also people who are like, what we call this in Hebrew, we call it Chasid Shoteh. You know what that means? Foolish pious, pious fool. What does that mean? He sees, right, some lady who went into her swimming pool, right? She's married, married woman. And he's, not married to her. somebody else's wife. So she goes into the pool, and he's here drowning, over there. So he says, oh, but she's a married woman, I can't touch her, It's not allowed to touch a married woman. So I'm not gonna, go and save her. But it's her life, What are you gonna let her die? What kind of pious fool is this, Foolish, very foolish behavior. So are you comparing, the issue of touching her to saving her life? Is that the same thing to you? This is the way you think. So there's something wrong, so a person has to know, right, how to weigh these things. This against that, right? Exactly. That's the idea. Yes. That's the idea. Okay, very good. So you get the idea, right? So again, right, we have here. This is one of the most important things, and this is one of the most difficult things to observe, right? You can see, by the way, in society, this is one of the worst and the most problematic issues. What does that mean? It says, right, "Lo tisneh et achicha bilvabecha." Don't hate your brother in your heart, right? To hate somebody is also a prohibition in the Torah. To hate your fellow Jew. Why do you hate him? For what? What do you hate him for? Because you're jealous of him, he has more money than you, right? He's more successful, he's got a better family, whatever it is, right? He's living in a better house, he's living in a better neighborhood than you, he's got a better profession, whatever. Like, what kind of thing is this? Why do you get jealous of him? Why do you hate him? For what? These kinds of things that a person is not allowed to hate somebody because of it. Or let's say, you don't get along personally, there's some kind of personality conflict there, He talks about apples, you talk about oranges, always have some kind of misunderstanding going on, You don't understand him, he doesn't understand you. There's always like friction going on there, But really, basically, they're both two nice people. Just they can't get along. There's a negative there, some kind of negative positive going on. Okay, fine, but you're not allowed to hate your brother in your heart, right? That's the idea. So personal. I'm sorry. Indifferent. That's the truth is, right? Right after this, we're gonna see also another one, right? After that, just 1 second. I'm gonna show you, right? But just to finish this idea that hatred is a very big sin, right? They say this is the reason why we're in galut until this day. We don't have a geula. We don't have the redemption because of sinat chinam, senseless hatred which has no source, no basis, no logical basis, right? So this is the idea. So we're not allowed to hate each other also. But you see, right, what goes on. Look at what goes on in American society, right? The hatred is so vile. It's so pungent. It's so extreme. How much this one hates this one, how much they hate the president, how much they hate this, his wife, his family, right? Exactly, right. Freedom of speech, right? But the hatred, is you can see how much they hate the person. They can't even come to see the truth, because the hatred blocks the truth. It makes it like into something, covers their eyes, it blinds their eyes. So that's the way it is, right? We don't have hatred in the Jewish people. This is considered to be one of the most biggest vices, that we have in the Jewish people. That because when the Goyim see, right, that we also have that, just like they have it, so they say, we're not any different than them, we're all the same. They're not the chosen people. They're just like everybody else. We're all the same. We're on the same boat. We're on the same page. Those Jews, they think, this, and they're not special. Why they say that? Because they say, right, they see that the Jews also treat each other with hatred, with animosity, right, and that causes also cruelty, fighting, all kinds of things, right, all kinds of issues. So this is the idea, right? So to have hatred is a very, very, very severe thing. But then, right, regarding your question, like, what does it say right after that? Before we get to the issue of what you talked about, right? Also, it says right after that, like this, right? So it says, right, in order not, you should rebuke your fellow Jew, and don't cause a sin because of this. What does that mean? If you don't rebuke him for something that he did wrong, this is going to cause you to sin. What does it mean? How is it going to cause you to sin? Number one is that you're not telling him the truth about what's going on, right? So this is causing him to continue his bad ways. This is one way to cause sin. The other way is also it's going to cause you to hate a person because you don't tell him the truth, right? You don't confront him with the truth. Why do you feel this way about him? What did he do wrong, right? What's the situation? Like we talked about the WhatsApp thing, This was the right way to what you did. If you feel something in your heart, you have to come and say, put it on the table, man. What are you afraid of, What, you think the guy's going to eat you? Not going to eat you alive, Tell him the truth. If you feel a certain way, whatever it is going to be, it's going to be, But you tell him how you feel in your heart. This is the way it has to be. So the Torah is telling you like this, right? If you don't do that and you hide it in your heart, you just let the animosity grow and more, so it's going to cause you to hate him in the end. So this is very bad, It builds up. the animosity. Oh, he did this to me, did this to me. You don't talk about any of these things. You don't tell him anything. He doesn't know what he did to you.
Go confront him.
Right, you confront him. Yeah, tell him what happened. What did you do? Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why all these things? This is the way to be. This honest way to behave. Right. So it's telling you right exactly the Torah like that. And if you don't do that, you're going to cause sin for him and also for yourself. For him to continue sinning, and for yourself to hate him also. So on both sides you're going to lose. That's the idea. Okay. Very good. So then it says right also another thing which is unbelievable. Right. This is something also which needs to be a lot of attention. Right. Lotikom velotitor. Right. Don't take vengeance on your fellow Jew, and also don't bear a grudge. Right. So the Chazal explain, right, go to lengths over here to explain what the difference is between taking revenge and bearing a grudge. There's two different things, right? Taking revenge, they say like this, right? What's the example? You get the good example. Mashali, So they say, right? What's the example of taking revenge? Your neighbor, right? Your neighbor came to you one day, right? And he asked you, listen, I heard you have a lawnmower, my lawnmower is broken. Can you lend me yours? And I'll pay you for the gas and everything. So he tells him, I'm sorry, I don't have a lawnmower, but he really has it. He lied to him, he's hiding in the garage. Whatever. Doesn't want to give it to him. Oh, okay. Doesn't have it. Okay, fine. So next week now, this guy comes right back to the other guy, right? Now the shoe's on the other foot. You know what I mean? The opposite. So he tells him, he says, listen, he says, my car is broken. Can I borrow your car? You have an extra one, right? Extra car. Let me borrow it. I got to go to the bank, do some transactions. So he tells him, oh, you're the one last week, huh? You didn't give me your lawnmower? No, I'm not going to give you a car. That's called revenge, right? Taking revenge, right? You avenged, in other words, just like you don't give me, I don't give you. Oh, this is the classic case of revenge. There's also other cases. This one classic case, right? Obviously. So bearing a grudge, what's the difference between this and that? So bearing a grudge is like this, right? Same scenario as we mentioned, but this time, right? The second guy comes back and he says, "Oh, can I borrow your car?" And he tells him, he says, "You want to borrow my car? But last week you didn't give me your lawnmower." But he says, "You know what? Even though you didn't give it to me, I'll give it to you anyway." So what does that mean, right? You didn't take revenge. You gave it to him, but you have to mention, right, that even though you didn't give it to him, so you're bearing a grudge. You know what I mean? This is the idea. So this is also right the prohibition. Right? Lotitor. What does that mean to bear a grudge? So therefore, right, both these things are prohibited in the Torah.
You're telling me that he'll lend him his car,
right?
But he
has to mention it, right? It's yeah. He has to rub it in,
Rub it in.
That's the idea. That's the idea, right? The truth is, right, that this doesn't apply in all cases in life. So in the Gemara, right, they say in the Masechet Yomah, this only applies in monetary cases. You're not allowed to take revenge. When it comes to other things, sometimes a person is allowed to take revenge. For instance, I'll give you an example, right? Let's say a person came and called you, he tells him, he says, you're a chamor, idiot, you're a chamor, you're a donkey, jackass, you're a jackass. So you tell him like this, right? You call me a jackass? He says, you're a jackass, So, is this called taking revenge? So the truth is, according to halakha, right, you're allowed to do this. You're allowed to call him back a name also, just like he called you, You're allowed to go tit for tat with him. Because this is not monetary. This is just verbal, whatever. Or another case like this, right? This guy comes, right? And all of a sudden, he's angry at you, He's got, something, he got really angry, something, he heard something about you. He comes, you're praying in the shul, he takes his fist like this and whops you over the head, So when you come outside, you can give him also a nice wallop. You can wallop him too, yeah. You're allowed to do that according to halakha. Just like he hit you, you're allowed to hit him back. You know what I mean? The truth is that the Chazal say that even though you're allowed to do this, it's a midat chasidut, it's saintliness not to do. If you want to be a saint, malach, angel, if you want to be angelic, they say there is a measure of saintliness. There is a measure of saintliness. No thanks. Not to take revenge, right? Even in these cases, but according to bare bones halakha, you're allowed to. Cases like this, just like he gave it to you, you give it to him also. Oh, okay. But there is a mitzvah not to do it also, as we said. That's nice to know, right? But nevertheless, when it comes to monetary things, they're right. It's a prohibition, mamash. Really, right? Oh, you didn't give me, I don't give you. This, that, all kinds of tit for tat. This and that. Bearing a grudge, taking revenge, these kinds of things. This is a prohibition. Okay, very good. Let's go on. Right. Same. By the way, same applies to what the Chazal teach us about Yaakov Avinu. Right. Yaakov Avinu played all kinds of games with Lavan and with Esav, to trick them with all kinds of things. Why did he do that? Because they were trying to trick him, So he gave it back to them. Right. Exactly. Right. Just like you try to trick me, I know how to be also trick you. This is allowed to do that. This is there's no prohibition regarding this. Okay, very good. That's the idea. So goes on to say, right. Furthermore. Now, right, regarding your question that you asked before, it says, "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, ani Adonai," right? You should love your fellow Jew just like you love yourself. You know what I mean? That's the idea.
But the guy hates me. How am I going to love him?
All right. That's an interesting thing, right? It's a good point what you're saying, right? But in general, right? In general,
In general, I understand.
right, that you should. But this is a very deep thing. Why is it so deep? The truth is, right, that one convert came, potential convert, and asked Rabbi Akiva. He says, listen, if you could tell me about Judaism in a nutshell, like what is it all about? In one short statement, what is Judaism? So he told him this pasuk, right? Love your fellow Jew like yourself. He says, the rest is just details. This is the central theme of Judaism. What does that mean? If you love your fellow Jew like yourself, you won't harm him, just like you don't want to harm yourself. Just like you don't want to slander yourself, you won't slander him either. Just like whatever you don't want done to yourself, you're not going to do it to him because you love him also like you love yourself.
But
this is the idea.
Why does it say love your Jew like you love yourself? Why can't you love a human being like you love yourself?
This is a very good thing. Very good question, right? What you're asking.
That's a separation.
Right.
One of the things they hate them. You love your Jew. You're treating your brother Jew fairly, and the boy you are treating unfair.
Right. The truth is that we never said that you're allowed to treat him unfairly, right? We never said that, right?
What does it say exactly?
Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, right?
Ve'ahavta who?
L'reacha. What does that mean? Your fellow. That means your fellow Jew. Yeah, your fellow Jew. That's what it means, right? So I'll explain to you why that is, right? That the Goyim, understand? They have a presumed assumption that they hate us, right? It says Esav sonel Yaakov. They hate us, for sure, right? So therefore, they don't respect or like us, and therefore we don't really have any mitzvah to love them either. You know what I mean? In other words, they're not really in that group that we're in. The Jewish family is a special group. We're considered to be on a higher level and on a higher plateau. We have to keep a higher level. We have to answer to a higher authority, as they said, right? You don't remember that?
Everybody answers to it.
Right. We have to answer to a higher authority. Hebrew National. You remember that? The whole thing, right? That's the idea. We have to answer to a higher authority. What does that mean? We're expected to have a higher standard. So, amongst the Jews, there cannot be such a thing like this as hatred. You know why? Because the Jewish people, right, it's something amazing, by the way. If you want to know a little bit like the spiritual side of this whole thing. The Jewish people are considered to be one soul, basically one unit. We're all just parts of one soul, one family. So it's like when you hate a Jew, it's like you hate your brother. You know what I mean? We're brothers. You know what I mean? But the Goyim are not our brothers. You know why? Because they hate us. They want to destroy us. They're not looking to be our brothers. You know what I mean? And also their souls do not come from the same source as our souls. Our souls are one. Their souls are not connected to us. They come from a different source. So therefore we have no this obligation of love, right? We don't have so much with them as we have with our own family. But nevertheless, you should treat them with respect and everything, right? As we said, right? Respect, everything, whatever. But the issue of love, but the truth is, right, they say, you should know, but according to the Kabbalah, though, I must tell you, right? Even though we don't find this in the Torah, but according to the Kabbalah, there's something even higher than this, you find. That talks about this, by the way, in the books like Tomar Devorah, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, one of the big Kubalim. It was 500 years ago. It's written over there, things like this, that a person really has to have mercy on all God's creations. You know what I mean? There is such a concept like this. So what does that mean? That a person, who's on a high level, who's striving for higher saintliness, Hasidut, he has to love every creation that Hashem created. There's a higher plateau like that. Even though halakha does not require that, but this is like, something like, a person who's really, right, exactly. So what does that mean? You know what that means? That for sure the Goyim and also everything, all the creations, the animals, you have to have mercy on everybody. You cannot be cruel to an animal either. You know what I mean? You have to love it's God creation. God created that animal. You know what I mean? It's not for nothing there. It's there for a reason, right? Everything has a reason why it's there. So a person really, right, who's on a really high level in Judaism, that's the way he has to be. His love has to be with no bounds. He love all God's creations. This is a higher level. Okay, very good. So let's go on a little bit, right? Another interesting thing that we find in this parsha is that right? So here we're talking about mixing animals, right? Grafting them, grafting animals. This with the donkey, with the horse, and all kinds of things, right? To this, we're not allowed to do that actively ourselves. The Goyim, if they do it, we're allowed to use those animals, yes. But we personally cannot intermingle, right, different species of animals. This is also like a higher standard that the Jews have, that since HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this species and that species, so don't mix them up, that Hashem didn't, right, exactly, Don't, there's a reason why this is this and this is that. Everything has its own species, right? Don't intermingle them. This is not the way to, right? The creation has a purpose, has a reason why it's like that. By the way, interesting thing about this, you should know that there are several species that we know, right? They come from right, grafting. What is that? We're talking about the mule, right? The mule is a mix between a horse and a donkey. Everybody knows that. There's also another one that a lot of people don't know, right? We're talking about in the Torah. This is called the namer, right? What is the namer? The tiger, right? So says one of the mefarshim, one of the commentaries on the Mishnah. He said that the tiger is also grafted, basically, right? It comes from two different animals. The original tiger that came, right? It came from there. So what happened, right? What happens is that a lioness gets heated up sometimes. Wants to be with her husband. You know what I mean? And her husband is lazy, hanging around there. You know how lions are, right? They like to lie around, do nothing all day, and then at night they get vicious, right? That's the way it is. So it happens like this, right? That this guy is lying around doing nothing. So comes, right, a wild boar, right? And comes and, goes in the place of the lion. So a tiger comes out of this union. You understand? That's what it says. Interesting, right? So the tiger is also one of these animals, which is like we call that a mamzer, shereulia, from one to another, right? Grafted, from one to the other. So this is not something that we do, actively. They do it themselves. This is not something we right.
Animals or fruit also?
That's also another thing, right? Also, we're not allowed to graft fruits either, right? There also we have rules. If they did it, we use it. Yeah, we use it. Yes, for sure, right? Many of the fruits that we eat today are grafted, right? Maybe like cherries, things like this. All kinds of fruits. They're known to be grafted. Okay, very good. So this is the idea, right? By the way, this is the reason why they say the tiger, has a character of a mamzer, right? Mamzeria, So mamzer is like very azpanim, right? Chutzpah, like you said. Why is that? Because he's not pure. He's mixed. Okay. Yeah, very much so. Right. Okay, very good. You got the idea. So then it goes on to say more, right, about these things. Like you said, also mentions grafting, fruits and right grains, all kinds of things like this. Not allowed to graft them either, right? But also we're talking about shatnez, right, which is the clothing. To put linen and wool in clothing together, this is also not allowed, right? As you know. Also, a person is not allowed to wear this kind of thing, right? They say that if he wears it, by the way, it causes him harm, because when he says prayers, the prayers don't go up. It like blocks his prayers, whatever.
Linen and wool?
Wool together, right, exactly, yes. Right? So, where do we find this? I'm sorry?
Acrylic and wool.
Yes. Where do we find this today? I think acrylic is not linen, right? It's something else.
No, it's man-made.
Synthetic, right? Synthetic, yes. Synthetic is fine. So, where do we find this, by the way? Today we find it like a lot of suits and coats, because in the lining they put these, to harden. The linen is like hard. So they put it into like a wool coat sometimes, like a linen lining to make it hard, stiff, stiff, whatever. So there are things like this, but the truth is, right, what is the halakha regarding these things? How does a person know? How does he check this? How does he know how to deal with these things? The truth is that today, Baruch Hashem, we have laboratories that check these things. They have methods now. In Williamsburg, they're the ones who first discovered this, right?
You want to cut it up to take a...
Interesting, right? No, what we do is like this, right? In the old days when I was living here, before I went to Israel, I used to take it to Williamsburg, a couple of new suits. I used to buy 2-3 new suits, right? Let's say, whatever. Go for a sale, 2 for 3, 3 for 2, whatever. Right? So you go, and you take the whole suit. They check it, they do a couple of things. They also cut a little bit, inside. Nothing. They sew it back up. Nothing major over there, right? Whatever. And they used to take in those days. It was very cheap, $2-3 each suit. Now they're charging. I heard much more some places, right? Each suit to check.
To check.
Yeah, pretty cheap,
Yeah.
$2, $2 a suit. I don't know what they're charging now, but in those days, that's the way it was, right? So that's it. And they were doing it in like 5 minutes. And actually, there was a person, in Williamsburg, one Hasidic guy over there. His name was Rosenberg or something like that. He was the one who discovered this method of checking, right? And he taught it to everybody. The whole world now is using basically his method of checking these things. But the truth is, right, that not everything needs to be checked. What does that mean? Only things which are commonly known to have shatnez need to be checked. Otherwise, there's no reason to check everything. What does that mean? That if you see in the suit, right, 100% this, 100% that. There's no reason to check that unless it's known that this brand or this species, right, is known to have this kind of problem issue, right, whatever. Okay, that's the idea. Very good. So let's go on. Let's talk a little bit about the issue of Rabbi Akiva right now, because we don't have a lot of time. So, interesting thing what the Chazal say about this. What does it say? It says in Masechet Yevamot, the Gemara over there, that the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, by the way, in the Gemara it doesn't call them 24,000. It says 12,000 pairs. Interesting, right? Pairs of students. What do you mean 12,000 pairs? Say 24,000. What is it with you? What kind of language is that? What I mean? Go straight. So why does it say pairs? Pairs of students. What do you mean pairs? So the truth is, right, that in the yeshivot, you know what I'm talking about. Exactly, you have chavruta, right? So this is must have been chavruta. These two, everybody has a pair. Everybody has this is the reason why they call 12,000 pairs. Whatever, right? So it says in the Gemara that they did not behave with respect to one another. This is the reason why they died. And they say, by the way, that the death that they had was especially bad death. There's good death, there's bad death. You know what I mean? There's death where a person just goes like that's it. Very painless, right? Very merciful. That's it. 2 seconds, right? He's gone. That's it. Didn't suffer. Didn't have to go to the hospital. Nothing. But there's also kinds of pain, right? Deaths which are very, very. You're suffering like weeks, months, God forbid, right? All kinds of things. So the Gemara says, right, that this death that they died from is called askara, which is a kind of like a choking thing. You choke, but it's like very slow. Just going on forever and ever and ever and ever. So this is like very painful, and it's a very cruel death. They say, right, the Gemara, this is the worst death that there is. Can you imagine? That a person is like, what it is, like the neshama is hard to pull out. It's like you have to make the person suffer more and more, and he's suffering. It's like it's a struggle, total struggle, and it's like the worst struggle that there is. They say this is the death that they died with. Can you imagine? This was the worst death that a person can get. So we discussed this a little bit last week, but there's a lot more to say about this actually, right? As we mentioned last week, that the Chazal, right, tell us the Mekubalim that these were reincarnations, right? These souls, they came from. Shimon and Levi, when they killed Anshe Shechem, the town of Shechem, they converted, right? These were converts over there. So what happened, right? This guy Shechem, he kidnapped Dinah, right? The daughter of Yaakov, raped her, right? And then what happened was that he wanted to marry her. All of a sudden comes to the family and says, now after I raped her, let me marry her. So the brothers are like, what, are you kidding me? What is this guy? We don't do this. The Jews, we don't have to behave this way, We don't first rape and then marry. No such thing like that. I'm sorry, So they told him all kinds of tricks. They said, we're not going to let you marry her until you convert to Judaism. We're like Jewish. We're a separate people, separate creed, whatever. So they said, okay, fine, we'll convert. They converted. They all converted, the whole town. The whole town converted, right? They got all Brit Milah. So came Shimon and Levi and killed them. They, right, the point was like this, right, that they converted before they died. So they died as Jews. You know what I mean? Very interesting, right? So they came back again. When was that? Right, in the time of Zimri, right? It was the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the president of the tribe of Shimon. Zimri, right? The president. So what happened was that he took some Goyish woman, right, and brought it to Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, you know what? I want to take her. What do you say about that, Moshe? So Moshe says, no, she's a Goya. I don't know how to take her. So he says, can you show me where it says that? Right? Okay. Where's the halacha? Where does it say the Shulchan Aruch like this? So they had a problem over there. He also told him like this. He said, You also took a Goyish wife, right? Your wife was also Goya. But Moshe Rabbeinu converted her. That was something else. Okay, that little detail he ignored. You know what I mean? So the point was, right, that came Pinchas, right, and killed Zimri.
But
So
why couldn't he convert her also?
I'm sorry.
Why couldn't he convert her?
He could have. He could have converted her, but this was like a one night stand. You know what I mean?
No conversion.
You know what I mean? Everything has its own rules, right? You know what I mean? Okay. He didn't want that. He wanted to just have a good time. You know what I mean? He also wanted to be like a proof of point. You know what I mean? He wanted to make a statement. That was the idea. You understand? That was the good, right? So he came to Moshe Rabbeinu to make a statement. So what happened was that Pinchas went and killed him, right? And also 24,000 of the Shevet Shimon were guarding him, to guarding his sin, also died with him. So now, right, they came back in time of Rabbi Akiva. These students were from those Shevet Shimon who were from Shechem. Can you imagine all the way through, one after the other? So here also 24,000, right? Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were 24,000, just like the Shevet Shimon, 24,000. So Rabbi Akiva was a Gilgul of Shechem, who was a Gilgul of Zimri. You know what I mean? This was went on from 3 generations. So these people had the souls of converts, the souls of Gerim.
Even Rabbi Akiva.
Yeah, himself, right? His father was also a convert, by the way. Rabbi Akiva's father. He was the son of a convert, Very, very simple, right? So his father's name was Yosef, right? He was a convert, Rabbi Akiva's father. So what happened was that they had to come back several times to fix their bad character traits. First, it was the issue of the rape and they covered up for the rape in the time of Shechem, and also in Zimri, right? There was a whole thing with the Goya over there, right? All this kind of thing. They covered up for that. So now, right, they came to a different plateau. What does that mean? Now they had to fix their midot, their chasiyat, their personality, character traits. Here, they didn't treat each other with kavod. So they were on also a higher level. They left behind all those sins they did. That's something else. Kadosh Baruch Hu took good care of that. But now their character had to be refined. This was the idea. So they say, by the way, that refining the character is even harder than all the other things. You know what I mean? To have good midot, kai chasiyat, to be gentle, nice person, peaceful, quiet, not troublemaker, always fighting with everybody, Yesterday he fought with this guy, today he fights with this guy, tomorrow he's going to fight with this guy, every day he's going to fight with somebody else. I mean, these kind of people are dangerous, these kind of people, right? You know how it is, right?
There's a difference between argument, fighting, and debating.
Yeah, there are nuances here, right there, for sure. There's no question about it, right? Because, when we talk about fighting, we're talking about something personal, It's not like we're debating some kind of subjects. You know what I mean? That's legitimate. We're debating this issue. As long as you respect each other, why not? There's nothing wrong with debating. You know what I mean? Also in halacha, there's nothing wrong. Right, the whole Torah is based on that. Exactly, that's all the idea, right? Yes, that's the idea, right? So they say, by the way, that here, right, the Gemara tells us several things, insights into this kind of issue, right? What is what? It says in the Gemara in Masechet Yevamot, Kashim Gerim LeYisrael Kesapachat. What does that mean? That the converts for the Jews are difficult. We suffer a lot from them. What does that mean? It's like a person who has a nice, beautiful face. Everything's good, but he's got one, pimple, sticking out, some wart, and it makes him ugly. If it wasn't for that wart, he would be a very handsome guy. You know what I mean? So the Gerim are compared to this wart, which is on the face. So on the other hand, it says, right? It says in the Torah, you have to love the Ger, you have to love the converts. So make up your mind. Apparently, there's a contradiction there, right? So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is that the truth is that even though it's like the mashal is like this, right? It's the allegory. Let's say a person has a son, right? He loves his son. You know what I mean? Nobody hates his son. Everybody loves their son. That's the way it is, right? But the son is a troublemaker. You know how it is, right? They go out and they wreck their cars. Then they get into trouble with the police. And one night it's this, and one it's some girl. They picked out some girl, this, whatever. Every day it's some other headache. When a person has a troublemaker son, you know what I mean? This trouble, he got into this trouble, that trouble. Now this issue, right? That issue, right? Tickets, parking fines, this all kinds of moving violations. No end to it, right? So every day it's like the father's like, oh, again with this guy. Now give me another headache, right? New headache now today again, right? Oh, thanks a lot, my daily headache from you, right? So on the one hand, your son is giving you a lot of problems, headaches, but you love him anyway. You know what I mean? That's the idea, Kadosh Baruch Hu loves them, but they do a lot of headaches, these people. You know what I mean? Why is that? Because they bring their culture, from their foreign nation that they come from. They bring that garbage also with them as well. other words, they don't get totally cleaned up from the conversion. There's something left over there, some remnants.
Neshama changes also once they come
They
back.
get a nun neshama. They get a nun neshama. Yes, they do get a holy nun neshama. But there are some remnants that are left over. You know what I mean? So a person who converts is considered to be like a newborn. He's a newborn.
It's a gilgul.
It's a new neshama. It's a new neshama. So it's a newborn. You know, it's like he's born that day that he converted. That's the way it is. That's the way it's considered to be. So, but nevertheless, right? It says in the Gemara also another thing, right? It says surora, right? Ger surora. What does that mean? The convert, his nature is bad. What does that mean? That the Yetzer Hara that he had before he converted still comes with him, somewhat. So they have a tendency to, to revert sometimes back to their own ways, their old ways. You know what I mean? There is such a tendency like this. So this is exactly what we see, right, in these people that they converted over there in Shechem. This was a whole, big fiasco. I mean, these people were not supposed to be converted. This was they cheated them. It was a deception going on there. All kinds of things. It was like a whole one disaster after another. You know what I mean? One pitfall after the other. Right? Exactly. So this was not exactly the classic case of conversion. This kosher conversion. So because of that, right? On the one hand, these people had to suffer a lot, go through reincarnations to clean up their mess, right? From their former place where they came from. But Kadosh Baruch Hu anyway cares for the neshamot. He wants to clean them up, so he reincarnates them, brings them back again and again until they clean up all their acts, everything. Right, everything is pure. Exactly. But the truth is, right, that these neshamot are very high neshamot. You know what I mean? These people who converted, those 24,000 who came from all those reincarnations, they're very high level people. They're somewhat even higher than the actual Jews themselves. They have more potential. So this is why Rabbi Akiva, was so high. He was a great chacham, one of the greatest chachamim that ever lived. Maybe perhaps the greatest of all, right? Whatever. So the point is, right, that these were very high neshamot, but Kadosh Baruch Hu had to clean them up. So he had to go through these stages like this. And this is the way it is, by the way, So Kadosh Baruch Hu, for him, this is the job that he does in this world until this tikkun, by the way, this rectification is completed. Mashiach cannot really come, Everybody has to do their tikkun. Everybody's got to finish. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for everybody. Can you imagine? I'm waiting for you. You're holding it back. Until you finish, you're still holding it back. I'm sorry. I can't bring the Geulah without you. You got to finish your tikkun. You got to rectify your problems. So, waiting for you. Waiting for you. Waiting. Right? Meanwhile, he brings them back more and more and more and more. He tries to fix them, right, as much as possible. So the whole point is, right, that these people were very, very holy people. So, but nevertheless, they say, right, something amazing about that. That these people were Talmidei Chachamim, very high level scholars. Rabbi Akiva and his students, 24,000. So what does that mean? They were supposed to be the progenitors of the Torah to the next generation, to teach, transmit tradition. And this failed. Why? Because they don't treat each other with respect. When rabbis don't treat each other with respect, they cannot transmit the Torah. There's no respect, there's no Torah, right? Derech Eretz Chadman Torah. When there's no Derech Eretz, there's no Torah either. You know what I mean? So these people, that's why, by the way, their names are not mentioned. We don't know what their names were. And no Torah is mentioned came from them. In other words, we don't have any lessons from them that they taught or learned or anything like that. You know why? Because people who behave this way, they cannot transmit the Torah to the next generation. There's a fatal flaw over there. I'll tell you something funny about this, by the way. There actually was a rabbi. There was a rabbi who lived in Queens. He was a big Talmidei Chacham, this rabbi. His name is Schwartz. Big Chacham. So this Chacham, right, had a very big gripe with one of the great Chachamim of this generation, right? Who was Rav Moshe Feinstein, who also was in America. He came from Russia. He emigrated from Russia. He was living in Manhattan, and he was considered to be the Gadol Hador, the great rabbi of the generation, biggest posek of the generation. You know what I mean? So this guy, right, once he saw the works that Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote, this guy, Rabbi Schwartz, he started to write against him. He had a vile. But he did it in a very vicious way. He was like he had a vile hatred for the man. Some kind of unnatural animosity was going on there. You know what I mean? So what happened was, can you imagine what he did was, he wrote actually a book that addresses, this person's, right, Moshe Feinstein, his decisions in halacha, and denigrates him, and puts him down, says very, 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 very insulting things about him. So the truth is, right, that he was, nevertheless though, even though he was very, very, he was very mean to this rabbi, extremely mean. I'll tell you some funny things about this, by the way. Number one is right that nevertheless that he was mean, but he was a big chacham. This guy, he knew how to learn very, very well. So he had good arguments with Moshe Feinstein. You know what I mean? He wrote in his book a lot of things to rebuke his theories and all kinds of decisions, whatever. So actually, right, if you read this book, it's like a compilation of insults and arguments. You know what I mean? Two things go together. Okay, interesting, right? So this book, you want to hear, by the way, the saintliness of Moshe Feinstein, right? How saintly person he was. They say, right, that when this Rabbi Schwartz, he came to print his book, that denigrates him. So this printer that he came to was also friendly with Moshe Feinstein, So he sees this book, the content. He's like, "Oh my God, what is this? This is like a hit job. You know what I mean? Assassination." So he called her Moshe Feinstein. He says, "Rabbi," says, "I'm sorry to bother you, but this guy, this rabbi brought me this book. He says he's denigrating you over here, putting you down. He says he's asking me to print this book, to publish it. He says, should I publish it or not?" That's what he has to. Can you imagine such a thing, right? This I was told, by the way, by his son-in-law of this rabbi. He told me the story. So he asked him this question. So you know what the answer was? Moshe Feinstein answered him. Right? Can you imagine the humility? He says, oh, that guy says, oh, yeah, I know what he's talking about. He says, you know what? He says, print the book. He says, print the book. He says, why? Because he says he needs parnasah. He needs some money to make some money. He needs a livelihood. So if he doesn't print the book, he's not going to be able to, to make a living. Yeah?
Wonderful. I understand, but the arguments.
Can you imagine? Okay, this is a saintliness, right? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Were his arguments? What's his arguments justifiable?
So interesting, right? That these arguments, this book was printed.
Okay.
And it's around. You can find it if you really look for it, right? In many of the yeshivot, you won't find it because it's considered to be like a backstreet kind of book. Something like something not we put in the front, in the front row. It's like back row kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's controversial.
Once
you know what I mean?
The books, learn that book.
So interesting, right? That once this book was published, so my rabbi Maran, he got a hold of this book. He had every book, the rabbi. He had 50,000 books in his library. Can you imagine? The biggest library in the world. So this was one of them, right? So now the issue was like this, right? That he had a yeshiva and his son had a yeshiva. I was there studying over there. So we asked him, some of the students over there went to the rabbi, and we asked him this. We said, should we put this book on the shelf or not? On the one hand, it's a halachic work, it's serious work. On the other hand, it's full of insults. So the rabbi answered. He said, don't put this on the shelf. He said, this book. He says because it'll teach the students to be mean and nasty and disrespectful to chachamim. This is not the way to, right? So he told him not to put it on the shelf. But he himself learned this book. You understand, Rabbi? Obviously, right? He had to know what's there.
What was his opinion about it?
So they asked him. They said, no. They asked him. They said, tell us, bottom line. Is this rabbi? Are his claims in halacha, are they right against the rabbi or no? That was his question, right? So you know what he answered? He says he's wrong in every case except two cases. He says 2 cases he's right. So this is kind of a very interesting thing, right? But what do we see from this story, right? The story is like this, that nevertheless, right, even though this rabbi was a big chacham, but this kind of disrespect, this kind of disregard for the kavod of a Talmid Chacham, you know what I mean? This is not something which a person like this cannot transmit the tradition of Torah to the next generation, because otherwise it's going to be soiled, right? It's going to be dirtied by this filthy, kind of attitude, very right, insulting and denigrating. This is not the way of the Torah, right? What does it say about the Torah? The Chazal said, right? That the ways of Torah are pleasant and peace. There should be no unpleasantness there. There should be no fighting. What are you fighting about? Argue, okay, you can argue, but with derech eretz, with ziloba, that's the other right. You don't have to humiliate. You don't have to denigrate them. You don't have to call them, you call them all kinds of insulting names, all kinds of things like this. So this is exactly the point, right? That we don't want people like this to transmit the tradition of Am Yisrael. Therefore, the students of Rabbi Akiva, their names are not mentioned and their Torah is not mentioned. Nothing is mentioned from them. So what happened was, right, that Rabbi Akiva, after his students died, right, during this time, which was from Pesach to Shavuot, right, this time, 24,000. Can you imagine? That means that there must have been like 700 levayot every day. funerals every day, 700. Something unbelievable, right? It's too shocking to imagine such a thing like that. Big rabbis, every one of them big chacham, you know? Oh, can you imagine if today such a thing like this happened? What would happen? How would we feel about this? Lo aleinu. So, the thing was like this, right? That after they all died, Rabbi Akiva was very upset, because all his work went down the tubes. You know what I mean? 24 years he's been studying Torah to become the Gadol Hador, the great rabbi generation, and now he has nobody to transmit the Torah to. He had nobody to transmit it to. Everybody died. Can you imagine? A person has all the Talmidim died. So what happened was, right, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem, in His mercies, sent him a few disciples, Talmidim. They were able to learn the Torah from him after that. He had to go to the south of Eretz Israel, right, the southern part. And over there he met Rabbi Meir, right, Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, right, and the two more rabbis that were there. These were the ones who he transmitted the Torah to. Otherwise, the Torah would have been lost. Can you imagine? It would have been just like totally wiped out. Can you imagine? This was a very serious thing. This is the reason why we mourn until this day, right, for this tragedy, because it's basically the Torah almost got wiped out because of this whole thing, right? But can you imagine one thing, though? That if these Talmidim would have been around, they would have been good boys, right, and behaved well, how much Torah would they have published? How much Torah would they have taught in Israel? Every neighborhood would have one of them over there. You know what I mean? Can you imagine? Each one of them was gadol. Each one of them was great. Right. So Torah would have been spread universally in a very, very great way. Every neighborhood would have a great rabbi to speak with, to ask questions, to hear his lectures, right? All kinds of things. We would have all these things. But because of this tragedy, we lost all this. So it wasn't just people that died. We're talking about the Torah here was almost killed out. You understand? This is the idea. So this is the reason why, right? We have to observe these customs of mourning that we observe because of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Baruch Adonai le'olam amen. Chazak u'baruch. Thanks for coming. Chag Sameach. God bless you.
Are you going to refuse a ride?
Offer you can't refuse.
Right.